Oni, I mean, like, hello, hello, and good evening to you and to everyone tuning in tonight with us. Thank you
Yeah,
so
hello
much.
everybody. We're back at it again. So last week we talked about that documentary Blackfish, and then we talked about just the method behind how they trained those sea mammals, which was basically marker training or clicker training. They use whistles though, but
I must
just
be,
the fact that they were being operantly conditioned. Um, Withholding food for performances that aren't going planned, and also just the psychological issues they developed while going through all that during a captive situation and captivity. And then we start talking about the correlation between that and today's pets and our animals and our dogs. And one of the things that I brought up was that there is a woman, her name is Karen Pryor, um, who used to work in those not SeaWorld. I thought she worked for SeaWorld, but she worked for Sea Life Park in Hawaii. Same thing. There's a same company where they're having performing sea life, for shows and stuff. And I was talking about, even though that created this huge controversy with how mistreated marine mammals were being coerced to do these tricks in order to earn their food. And on top of the captivity, I explained that we have a big crazed method right now in the positive reinforcement world, which is clicker training. Everyone does it with their dogs, and everybody uses it with their dogs, and that just created this huge positive reinforcement movement. And then I mentioned that the person that was behind that movement was Karen Pryor, who happened to be a former trainer of uh, of
SeaWorld.
SeaWorld or Sea Life Park is where she was working exactly.
Yeah, but stay there a little bit. How do you do that? I was kind of like always, I know how terrible that is, but how do you make whale do such a thing? Even if you say like, how do you explain to whale that they need to jump and then do all of those tricks? Do you know that? Do you know the story behind that?
Yeah, it's operant conditioning. It's shaping.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's shaping.
how? How would you shape the veil to do such a thing?
You basically create incremental steps that lead up to it. If you go on the internet and just look up shaping behavior through dog training, like for example, if
No,
somebody
no,
wanted
I
to,
can understand to any mammal like a four-leg animal like even I can understand how would you train the elephant and lion and everything, but I just cannot comprehend how do you train a fish or actually
you you
something
you
that
you
swims.
catch you catch the behavior as it occurs. So I'll give you an example. When they're doing it with pigeons,
Mm-hmm.
right? They basically, for example, this is I think was in B.F. Skinner's work, and this was what I think he was called the Skinner box. So they put this animal in the Skinner box. The Skinner box represented that kind of controlled and managed environment, and they had kind of like a red dot or a red button that was in that box.
Mm-hmm.
And as the birds were traversing just around that box and pecking things, as soon as they noticed that it was remotely close to that red dot, they expelled the treat. Oh, he was close, boom, and they just let a treat out. At that moment, the animal doesn't have any idea how the treat just popped in there. They're probably not even aware that it had anything to do with that red dot that they were even remotely near. But
Mm-hmm.
through trial and error, eventually they realize, oh, it's every time I'm in this area, but they don't quite know what it is that's causing the treat to be dispersed. Then eventually, over time, they realize, oh, if I concentrate and focus on this, the treats start coming out more often. And so that's what they're doing is they're nurturing that behavior and then they're rewarding for the behavior. And once the animal realizes, okay, it's this dot, then the animal starts realizing, okay, so this will create the treat.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you don't give the treat, then the animal starts trying different behaviors to see, oh no, this button's not working anymore, or tapping this red dot's not working anymore. So they start to demonstrate different behaviors, hoping they can find another way to get that treat. And if they perform a
Mm-hmm.
behavior that you like, you go, oh my God, that was so cool. Boom, you disperse the treat, right?
So you
But
think
in
like
order,
that's the way, and you think that that's the way? No, no, you think that's the way how they like train dolphins and
that's how they do it.
those.
Yeah, that's how they do it. And that's also how they train dogs. Yeah, with clicker training. So then what ends up happening is then the animal starts to offer behaviors and you only click for the behavior that you want. So now, so let me kind of tell you a little bit where this clicker came into play.
Mm.
So during World War II, the United States Air Force did a study to find out what a dog's learning association is between trial and error, cause and effect, right? Because that's what operating conditioning is. It's a stimulus response. You do something, and then there may be a good response or a bad response. But they wanted to know, well, what is the learning association between those two events?
Mm-hmm.
And so they found out as they were doing that study that it was actually pretty bad, meaning that they realized that dogs, I think in the study it said that they have maybe a 1.3-second learning association between cause and effect. I
Mm.
feel
Mm-hmm.
that in my experience, that's around 2 or 3 seconds. But according to the study, I think it said 1.3, meaning that in order for an animal to understand that their action produced some sort of a consequence, that consequence has to happen within 1.3 seconds of the action actually happening, right? If it's a longer duration, a lot of times the animal can't associate that their action produced that consequence unless it happens within that time frame. So that's equivalent to um, when they say, "Oh, don't punish your dog for potting on the floor." Well, for one, it's because they pottied on the floor. You came home probably 30 minutes, an hour, maybe it was just after a work day. Hours has gone
Mm-hmm.
by. For you to punish your dog for potting on the floor, they won't create an association that it had anything to do with the potting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in order for them to learn that their action they just did created either a positive consequence or a negative consequence, that response has to happen within 1.3 seconds of the learning association. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
reason why that was so detrimental to the Air Force is because they were trying to learn how can we utilize dogs for military work, and they had to train dogs and try to find what was the kind of the quickest way of producing that result. But here's where things get complicated. So a lot of times people said, well, I do that. I catch my dog in the act. If he does something wrong, right there, I'm there seconds, and it still doesn't work. He still doesn't understand that what he did was wrong because he keeps doing it. So then that 1.3-second learning association is not true. Well, here's what people fail to realize. Let's say, for example, I saw my dog chewing on a cord. I'm sitting on my couch. My dog is chewing on a cord. Okay. And as he's chewing on the cord, I say, uh-oh, he's going to get electrocuted. So I get off my chair. And when I get off my chair, he looks at me and I go, no. So later on, tomorrow, the week after, he's still chewing on cords. Why didn't that work? The reason why it didn't work is because when I got off the chair, I brought attention to myself. When he turned to look at me as I was walking over, I said, no. So I corrected him for looking at me.
Mm.
He had no idea that the whole point that caused the whole action was that he was actually chewing on the cord, which caused this whole effect to happen to begin with. So they started incorporating what they call a marker. A marker is a sound that marks a point in time of when a reward was earned. So here's an example. Okay. I'm going to use positive punishment as an example. I know it's not used in clicker training, but I find that when I use a positive punishment approach or an example, people tend to get it much faster. So I'm just going to use that. So let's
Mm-hmm.
say, for example, I'm a child and I'm not supposed to touch the cookie jar. Okay. So if I touch the cookie jar and I hear my mom saying no, and then she comes over and smacks my hand, I'll be like, ugh. Okay. Then later on, I go to touch the cookie jar and my mom says no, and then she comes over and she smacks my hand, and I go, ah. Okay. Pretty soon as I go touch the cookie jar, my mom doesn't have to go from the living room to the kitchen just to smack my hand. As soon as I hear no, and the reason why I do that is because I've created an association that when she says no, that means I'm going to get a smack on the hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I've now realizing that if I touch the cookie jar, that's the moment that I hear no. And that's when I realize, oh, she could even come late into the kitchen. I can touch the cookie jar. No. Uh-oh. And my mom can take her time coming over and she can smack my hand and I still know why she smacked it. Because at the point in time she said no is when I earned that spanking. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same way in reverse for food. if an animal does something that you want to reinforce, but you're too late with the reinforcement, you could be rewarding for a billion micro behaviors that you didn't need to reward for. So if
Mm-hmm.
you use a marker such as a sound, but instead of using no, let's use a like a clicker sound.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty soon the dog will associate, oh, when I did this action, I heard the clicker, which I know means food is coming. So now the trainer can be maybe 3 seconds late or maybe 4 seconds late with the reward, but the dog will still know at what point of time the reward was earned.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do with marine mammals is they use a whistle. So
Oh.
what they do is they wait for the marine mammal to perform some form of behavior that they just want to mark. And it can be a simple behavior, like just coming to them or touching a ball. So maybe they throw a ball into the pool and all of a sudden the dolphins are investigating this ball. As soon as one of the dolphins touches the ball, they shrill the whistle and then they throw a fish in. That dolphin has no idea why a fish just landed in the water. All they knew is, whoa, there's food here. So they get the food and they wait over by the trainer going, can I have another one? Can I have another one? Can I have another one? And the trainers just don't entertain the dolphin. They don't communicate with the dolphin. They just more or less just ignore the behavior. So then the dolphin says, okay, I'm going to just explore my pool area. And it goes back to the ball and then goes, what is this that they threw in here? And if it all it touches it, boom, right away the trainer goes, throws the blows the whistle, throws the fish in. And then they go, oh, there's more fish. Then they stand there looking at the person going, can I have more? And the person just ignores. So over time, the dolphin says, all right, well, this person's of no use to me right now. I'm going to go ahead and see what this ball's all about. They tap the ball again. Again, they hear the whistle. Fish goes in. Then the dolphin says, oh, do they want me to do this? And as it starts tapping the ball, and they start throwing the fish in. And basically the dolphin says, oh my gosh, this is getting the food. And that's a very simple behavior. Once the dolphin starts to interact with that ball more, they may even decide to throw the ball in the air for the dolphin. So they're playing with the dolphin. And maybe the dolphin might jump up and tap the ball as it's going through the air. Oh my gosh, next time we have to mark that. So the next time the dolphin jumps up and taps the ball, they blow the whistle, and then they throw the fish in. Now the dolphin starts to duplicate jumping towards the ball. And then they start shaping that through jumping through a hoop, through going on the floor. And whatever the dolphin offers in behavior to earn the food, if they like that the behavior that the dolphin offered, and they go, oh my gosh, that would be good for the show, they'll mark it with a whistle and then give the dolphin the food. That marker is important because if they give the food at any moment when the dolphin's already doing something else different, you're rewarding for that behavior instead of the original behavior you wanted to reward that caused you to be too late for the dolphin to be able to create the association. So that's what
And
marker training is for. And
and
that's
can
where
you
the
just
clicker comes
can you then get a dog or animal confused? Because if you kind of like blow the whistle and then get a food, but prior you blowing the whistle, today he touched the ball and tomorrow he's doing something else, or need to be like one, for example, touch the ball today
It
and
only takes them maybe it only takes an animal maybe 2 times to realize the pattern. That's why the studies showed that in order for an animal to recognize a series of events that their action caused this consequence, it has to happen within 1.3 seconds of that association. And what helps the animal understand at the moment of time when they've earned the reward, the whistle happens at that moment in time.
Mhm.
So what ends up happening is the reward is the primary reinforcer. Ultimately, they're really doing it for the fish. But later on, they start working for the whistle. The whistle means I've earned the fish. So how can I get the whistle to be blown? So the whistle becomes what they call a secondary reinforcer. It's the reason why the animal's duplicating the behavior because they heard the whistle at that moment in time. But the primary reinforcer is that they know that that whistle has told them what you just did at that moment earned you a treat. A treat is on its way for that specific behavior. so that way they don't get confused.
Mm.
And animals are very smart, as you already know. So it only takes them maybe 2 or 3 times to either make the same behavior by mistake, but they generally start to create an association and then they start realizing what behavior I did that's producing the consequence of the fish. And then they start mastering that and they start duplicating it. Once the trainer realizes, okay, it's very clear to me that they keep hitting the ball now. So they know what's earning the fish. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to reward for that. And what happens is when they realize that this behavior is no longer working, I'm tapping this ball in the pool, it's no longer producing fish. Then they try erratic behavior to try to get the person to throw the fish. What else do you want from me? So they start trying to figure out and communicate with a human. How can I get you to? I'm tapping the freaking ball, for Christ's sake. Why isn't food coming? And then when they jump, they blow the whistle. I like that jump. And then the dolphin says, oh, you like me jumping now. And so that's where they start creating a curriculum of tricks. The dolphin is trying to offer a behavior to earn the fish, but it doesn't know exactly what the human wants. The marking of the whistle tells the dolphin what you just did earned you a treat. So that's where the dolphin wants to duplicate. But if they didn't have that whistle or that marker, the treat would get to that dolphin way too late for the dolphin to really create any association as to what caused the treat to come, what's making the human happy. And that's just really basic psychology 101, just on B.F. Skinner's work.
To be honest to you, like I never used clicker training. It was like too complicated for me. As I said, like I was always trying to inspire dogs to behave for me, not by work, but somehow because deep unconsciously, I always knew that if I can put a dog in a perfect environment, that they can choose a behavior like by choice, like it's kind of choice chosen behavior in order for them to make me happy. That's why my dogs in the show ring were performing always outstandingly, because you can see the charisma, how the dog looks in you when they are like doing that because they want, or if they are doing that because they are expecting the treat, or because of the choking collars they are forced to do. But I never actually, I tried because I was like, I heard about that clicker training, and then I said like, let me try with it, and then it was too much gadget in my hand that I didn't know what to do with. But
If you don't understand the concept, it makes things
yeah,
hard.
yeah, yeah.
So let me actually show you something interesting. Hold on one second. I gotta see if I can find it. Um,
But you did it, explain it perfectly, because now I do understand actually the concept of the clicker training is actually to give you that door frame, open the door for the reward to be connected with the behaviors, even if you are not present in close proximity to a dog or other animal, to show them why the reward is coming from. But is that from the perspective of you explaining last time, like when you positively kind of like I liked how you framed it. You said like it's kind of like a positive reinforcement with actually negative consequences of the negative behavior, because you are not rewarding the dog for the good behavior, you are withholding a food for the bad behavior. And that's kind of like completely or actually, if you're using a force, you're using the force, but you are not using the force if the dog performs whatever, or animal performs whatever we want to do. So it's kind of like that's very interesting. That was a very interesting point that I like kept thinking for pretty much a long time after we had last time session, and that the blackfish on its own was like a sad story of the mankind connecting to the animal world, just because the performance and all kind of stupid BS that the humans want to do for entertainment. So, and then also, I was still thinking a lot about your shoe, and that relationship in between you and your dog, in which them bringing your shoe can be something that's you can label as a symbiotic relationship. So I was like having, I can't say little trouble with that, but I was like didn't left my mind for a long time, like why would I do the dog, why, how would I live with, but how would I live with, can we live with the dog without the purpose of living with them?
Well, that was just how dogs became in our existence. We had a symbiotic relationship with them when we started realizing that they were following us as far as tribes or nomads were going. Some of the junk we would leave behind, or some of the food we'd leave behind, or the scraps we'd leave behind, created this following state of mind for them to kind of keep up with us. And we were of use to them. But then later on, as we just, didn't consider them a hindrance and we allowed them to kind of follow us around, we started noticing that they had uses for us. So, for example, the first use for them was the fact that they would let us know when anybody was entering our camp, or when anyone was entering our, maybe a conflicting tribe would start to entering our territory. Then the dogs would start to alarm, or they'd start to make noise, or they'd start to behave funny. Then we realized, oh my gosh, this is a great security system.
No, no, I get
Pretty
that,
soon,
but that's exactly the point I'm talking about. Is actually that is the dog guarding us because they guard us, or they are guarding us because they guard the territory they live in, or
as they're guarding the territory. So when they're guarding the territory, if you like that behavior and you find use for it, then you start to nurture it. And when you nurture
Mhm.
it, then it becomes of use to you. If you start realizing that they naturally start to protect their livestock from invading wolves, then that becomes of use to you and you nurture it. And then it becomes more of a symbiotic relationship. I feed you guys, I provide the food, I provide all the creature comforts. You guys keep taking care of my sheep. And that's kind of
But
where a lot of the guardian livestock kind of came from.
yeah, but and that's a great way. I wanted to think of, and I wanted maybe to discuss together. Like, are we actually at that point? Would we, by selectively breeding for the specimens, or the bitches and the dogs that are actually doing and performing job for us, actually breeding according to, we gonna feed these dogs if, right? If they guard us, if they herd, if they do this, ifs, a lot of ifs, we gonna do. Is that a symbiotic relationship in a way in which the dog need to say, okay, I cannot earn the food by them because they're gonna throw that food anyhow. So why would I do anything for the food that's left or left there? No, now the mankind said, oh, I'm gonna throw the food, but to those dogs, they're gonna do something for me. And for those
So
other ones that are not doing anything, I don't want to feed them.
I
I
don't
don't
think,
actually want to
I
breed
don't
them.
believe there was no dog training back then. I don't believe that people were consciously doing it or were aware they were doing it. I
No, no, but
just think
that's a
that it
no.
started
That
happening a bit.
that's my
Yeah.
question to you.
Yeah. No,
Didn't we?
I believe what happens is that, especially because of my experience in Mexico, whenever, I've had families and visit families in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
I would notice that they would have certain dogs that they didn't even own. There were just certain dogs that kind of, I remember going to, my grandma's house. We call her Abuelita. And when we went there, um, I remember they had two dogs that were always there, and they had names for them. And then I remember saying, "Oh, are these our dogs?" And she says, "No, no, they're not nobody's dogs. They're just friends." And I go, "What do you mean? They come and go when they please. They live here. They want to live here. They come inside." I'm like, "Can they come inside?" She goes, "Yeah, you can bring them inside. They'll come." So I brought them inside. But whenever they got mad, or whenever they go, "Oh my gosh, this dog's being a brat, get out of my house," they would just chase the stray dog out of the house, and then he would leave. But he would always come back. But the ones that were more of a nuisance came back less often. And the ones that were more copacetic to not causing any disharmony around their property stuck around. And those basically kind of became pets, even though they didn't consider them pets. And that just kind of happened a bit naturally. Now, one of the things that I did want to say is a little bit more about the marker training, because we want to talk about Karen Pryor, the work that she did with the marine mammals.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to give you a little bit of a demonstration of what that looks like. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
I have an old video footage of a wolf dog named Zamunda. She's a black phase wolf dog. She was a puppy.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, I have experience doing all kinds of training. So I actually have a video of me doing marker type training, as if you would with a dolphin, with her. And I can show you in a very short video how I'm able to catch behavior and reinforce behavior that she's offering
Mm-hmm.
using the food and using the marker training. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to show you a video. So I think I might need permission to share the screen. I don't know. Let me see if I can do it. Yeah. All right. So you should be able to see my screen here.
I do.
All right. And this, let's swipe you out of here. This is called the no game. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Now, what I'm doing is I'm kind of creating markers. Instead of using a whistle and a clicker, I'm using a word as a marker, right?
Mm-hmm.
That word for the marker is going to be good. That's it. So some people might make a noise with their mouth, like a sound. Some people might use the fingers to make a snapping sound with the finger. Some people
Mm-hmm.
you will use a clicker. I just simply use the word good, and the good is the marker. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm actually teaching is no. I mean that I don't want you to do what you're doing. So I'm keep saying no, 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 because I'm in disapproval for what the animal's doing at the time, which we call it a negative marker. But
Mm-hmm.
when she pauses, when she minusculely just leaves my hand alone, I mark it right away with good. And then I give her the treat. It's up to her to realize what is she doing that I'm saying good for, and what is getting her the primary reinforcer, or what is getting her the treat. You'll see very quickly how fast she catches on. And then you can start seeing potential of how we can shape this into different behaviors. So
Mm-hmm.
let's watch this real quick.
No, 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 no. Good.
All right. The second that she looked up at me, the second she stopped pestering me for the food is when I gave the marker. That would be the
Mm-hmm.
second that a marine mammal trainer would blow a whistle.
Mm-hmm.
But when I said the marker good, she realized, oh my gosh, she opened the hand like a jackpot. I was able to get a treat. And watch how she starts offering different behaviors to figure out what it is that I'm asking for.
Mm-hmm.
No. Good. No, 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 no.
All right.
Good.
So basically, she's already leaving my hand alone, but I want something more from her,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm not necessarily rewarding right away just because she stopped bothering my hand. I'm looking for other behaviors that she might offer me that I could say, oh my gosh, I like that. That earned a treat.
No, 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 no. Good.
Mm-hmm.
No, no. Good.
Now watch what happens here.
No, no. Good. No, no. Good.
All right. Did you see how when she happened to sit, I said good and give her a treat?
Mm-hmm.
There's a very good possibility that she's thinking in her mind, hey, when I sat, I got a treat. And she might duplicate this behavior if she thinks this is working for her.
Imagine. No. Good.
Oh, that was good.
No. 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 Good.
Boom, right there. She duplicated her sit. She realized, okay, when I took my nose off his hand, he was still saying no. It wasn't getting me the treat like it was before. What did I do last time to get the treat? And she sat. So she remembered sitting last time got the treat. So she duplicated the behavior at the point I said good.
No. 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 Good.
Why did you do that now?
No.
Because I'm not rewarding for a sit anymore. I want something different.
Isn't this okay? Okay, let's finish this.
Yeah, okay.
No. Good.
Now she's laying down. And if I wanted to, I could totally duplicate that instead. So let me get this off the screen sharing so that we can go back to where we were just seeing each other.
Is this something that you do prior the conditioned behavior, or no? This is a current model.
No. I don't train this way anymore.
Okay, yeah.
Which brings me to why. Let me explain why I don't train this way anymore. This is how SeaWorld trains. This is that what I just did was what you saw in that video was a demonstration of operant conditioning, which is basically marker training, and also that's how clicker trainers train as well. They start to shape behaviors and they mark the behavior with the sound in order to duplicate that behavior followed by a treat. So there's an article that I wrote, which I'm sure will be either shared in the comments, the link for the article, or at the end of the podcast, it'll be in the bottom of the description. But this goes into the harm that operant conditioning can do. What I just showed in that video is very common of how people train their dogs. And it was popularized by Karen Pryor, who used to work for training marine mammals. And we already discussed earlier in the podcast we did last week why that was harmful. And I don't do that kind of training anymore. But I wanted to show you an old video of me when I did do that kind of training to give a better explanation of what marker training actually is. It's trick training is ultimately what it is.
You still have this wolf dog around, right? She's still there. And was it easy to transfer for her to forget everything that you conditioned her with this offer conditioning? Or once you started to incorporate this
if you continue to reinforce the behavior, even if you reinforce it on a intermittent basis, it will always kind of stick around. The only way for that behavior to go away is by just stopping completely until it goes into extinction, meaning that the dog will come over and still offer the behaviors, hoping for a reward, but you just ignore the behaviors until the behaviors go into extinction. And that's basically just following Ivan Pavlov's theory of classical conditioning. We're getting rid of the classical conditioning by no longer reinforcing the behavior. But sometimes if you're conditioning the behavior so long and your dog's 10 years old and now you want to learn more cognitive learning, the chances are your dog's already self-conditioning. And it's very hard to get them into a cognitive state of mind once they've been conditioned for that long. Especially when you're using a lot of food because it keeps them primitive, and you're keeping them conditioned with the clicker training throughout their whole life. So they start to develop psychosis, and when they develop psychosis, now your cognitive learning is how do I get this dog out of psychosis, and that just takes a long time. So it's the harm that we don't want to do early on. So even though I did that with that dog, that wolf dog, I didn't continue doing that for that wolf dog. As a matter of fact, that was the only time I did that with that wolf dog, and I never did it with that wolf dog since then.
How old was she when you stopped doing it?
Oh, she was probably 8 weeks old when I stopped doing it.
Oh, already?
Yeah. Yeah. I already knew it wasn't what I wanted to do.
You entered the dog world, like a wolf dog world, out from conditioning, like this.
I was already a trainer before I ever entered the wolf dog community. I was already working on behavior, but I was still heavily influenced by operant conditioning.
Yeah, but once you started doing this cognitive behavior, that was that opened the door to your wolf dogs, right? Or no?
Once my mentor saw what I was doing, he saw cognitive. I was doing training that more resembled cognitive behavior. There were other things that I was doing that wasn't necessarily following what a dog trainer would do. And then that's when my mentor said, hey, you're kind of becoming this balanced version of a trainer and then somewhat of a natural trainer. I would call you a natural trainer, but you're technically not because I still see that you're heavily using operant conditioning. You would be so surprised how much better of a relationship you can get with your dog if you just stuck with the cognitive part and just left your other tools and tricks out of the equation. And at that point, I wasn't quite understanding how I would do that. I need my tools. I need my food for the positive reinforcement. And I don't understand what he was talking about, what I was doing naturally that was helping, because I wasn't even aware that I was doing it until he was pointing it out. And then that's kind of when I started going down that path. So this article, it's called Clicker Training Exposed, the Shocking Truth Behind Karen Pryor's Controversial Method. Because Karen Pryor was the one that popularized clicker training from her past mammal training at Sea Life and SeaWorld and all those marine mammal shows. So Clicker Training Exposed, the Shocking Truth Behind Karen Pryor's Controversial Method. Discover the untold story of clicker training from its origins with Karen Pryor and B.F. Skinner to the heated debates that surround its use today. Learn ethical concerns, the limitations of operant conditioning, and how modern science is pushing for more holistic approaches to animal training. Is clicker training the humane solution it claims to be, or is there a darker side to this popular method? Clicker training, a method popularized by Karen Pryor, has its roots in operant conditioning principles developed by B.F. Skinner. Pryor, a former marine mammal trainer, introduced clicker training to the wider animal training community through her work at Sea Life Park in Hawaii. The technique involves using a small device that makes a clicking sound, paired with positive reinforcement, usually treats, to shape an animal's behavior. The origins and rise of clicker training. Karen Pryor's influence of the clicker training cannot be overstated. Her work in the 1960s and 70s, particularly with dolphins at Sea Life Park, demonstrated the efficacy of operant conditioning in training complex behaviors. Pryor's book, Don't Shoot the Dog, which is a book that she authored, published in 1984, brought these methods to a broader audience, extending beyond marine mammals to dogs, horses, even household cats. Pryor's approach was revolutionary for its time, providing a humane and effective alternative to more punitive training methods. The clicker itself became a symbol of positive reinforcement training, where the click marks the desired behavior, followed by a reward. This method quickly gained traction among pet owners and professional trainers alike. Now, the controversy surrounding clicker training. Despite its widespread adoption, clicker training has not been without controversy. Critics argue that the method oversimplifies an animal's behavior and neglects the emotional and cognitive complexities of animals. The association with SeaWorld, an organization criticized for its treatment of marine mammals, further complicates the narrative. Detractors question whether techniques developed in a controlled environment, often under conditions now deemed inhumane, can be ethically or effectively applied to domestic animals. Moving beyond behaviorism and operant conditioning. In recent years, scientific understanding of animal behavior has evolved beyond the principles of behaviorism and operant conditioning. Cognitive ethology, the study of animal minds, emphasizes the importance of considering animals' mental processes and emotional states. This approach advocates for training methods that account for an animal's cognitive abilities, social dynamics, and emotional well-being. Research has shown that animals possess complex cognitive skills such as problem solving, memory, and even empathy. These findings challenge the reductionist view of behaviorism, which primarily focuses on observable behaviors and external stimuli. The recognition of animals as sentient beings with rich inner lives has led to the development of more holistic training methods that go beyond mere conditioning. Now, the dangers and cons of traditional conditioning methods. One of the primary concerns with traditional conditioning methods, including clicker training, is the potential for creating a mechanical response in animals. While these methods can be effective in shaping behavior, they often do not address the underlying emotional states or motivations of the animal. This can lead to issues such as reliance on external rewards. Animals may become dependent on treats or clicks, reducing intrinsic motivation and potentially leading to frustration or anxiety when rewards are not given. Limited emotional engagement. Focusing solely on external behaviors can overlook the animal's emotional well-being, potentially resulting in stress or fear if the animal is confused or unable to understand what is being asked, which was something you kind of brought up a little bit earlier. What if they're confused? Behavioral spillover. Conditioning methods can sometimes lead to unintended behaviors. For example, an animal trained to perform a specific action for reward may generalize this behavior inappropriately, leading to problematic actions in different contexts. This is a good example is a dog that's sitting for no reason because he wants a reward, but he's sitting out of context of the environment, which is now becoming a dog that's performing out of context. The
By
evolution of
choice?
cognitive learning. So this is kind of where our kind of field comes in. In contrast to operant conditioning, cognitive learning emphasizes understanding an animal's perspective and fostering a cooperative relationship, a symbiotic relationship. Techniques such as relationship-based training and positive reinforcement through social interactions prioritize the animal's mental and emotional health. These methods encourage intrinsic motivation. By engaging an animal's natural curiosity and desire to interact with their environment, their trainer can foster intrinsic motivation, leading to more resilient and adaptable behaviors, especially when going into the real world. Emotional bonding. Strengthening the bond between trainer and animal through mutual trust and understanding enhances the training experience and supports overall well-being. Then problem-solving skills. Encouraging animals to think and make decisions promotes cognitive development and helps them adapt to new situations. So the conclusion, while clicker training marked a significant advancement in humane animal training methods, it is essential to recognize its limitations and the potential for more progressive approaches. As our understanding of animal cognition and emotions continues to grow, so too must our training techniques evolve. By embracing methods that consider the whole animal, trainers can ensure a more ethical and effective approach to shaping behavior, ultimately leading to happier and healthier animals. And that's kind of the reasons why I started to stray away from more operant conditioning approaches like you saw in that video and started dealing with more just a symbiotic relationship with just me and my animals just being together.
Mm-hmm.
So
How do you see, like, because I must tell you, in our institute we did a deep study of how the behavior of the humans and our perception of how we should deal with a dog impacts the dog physiology. Because every single time, you know how the environment shapes perception, and then my view on that the dogs are sentient beings, and that the outcome of the creation as well, with the sole purpose on this planet, having a soul and having a chance to experience emotions and understand the pain and suffering as a part of their existence, what makes them be very sentient beings, especially the dogs, not only all the animals. And now also we are kind of like, that leads us to another, maybe a little deeper um, thinking, what we don't need to do today, but also we can discuss about how fair we are to the world if we are just taking such a nice care of the animals and then continue to industrially farm the other animals in order to feed our dogs, right? There is this farm of the animals in which we raise cattle and sheep and ducks and everything in order to produce a food for dog. That brings a moral question in about how can I say, two-faced we are towards ones that we called pet and the other ones that we say, well, we need them for our own survival, and then the leftovers the dogs can have it. So that brings a lot of moral questions, because we cannot look at the animals with the different eyes. Like, dog is an animal as well as a cattle and the little sheep and the duck and the little a little chicken, right? All of those are animals. And then if we say we cannot say dogs are sentient being, but the cow is not, or that the dog has emotions, the cow has not, or the dog has a soul, but cow has not. So we kind of like, I think like we miss that general consensus about fairness. How do we treat animals in general? But since there is a so-called phenomena in that how the every single organism is structured, it's called like homeostasis. I don't know. That's kind of phenomena of keeping system within itself, within the boundaries of the system, and then the brain itself creates a critical role in looking the solutions, looking for the, for example, there is no control center, or actually there are no receptors on our skin that can like how you say that that can collect the UV radiation. So we don't have those receptors on our skin, right? That's why, because we don't know how high is the UV radiation at the moment, we end up exposing ourselves to a high radiation, and then we got burned because there is just no sense. There is no sensor. There is no receptor on our skin that can say, "Oh, move away from the sun now," because even though there is no sun, because UV radiation doesn't need necessarily be on the sunny day. It can be also on the cloudy day, but you end up going home like very, very highly burned because there is no receptor on our body that will send the signal to the brain to tell us to make an action, move away because you're going to get burned. And then the same way, dogs and every
But what
sentient.
about the feeling? Like, so for one, I burn pretty easily, but when I'm in the sun, before I get burnt, I can feel the heat. I can feel like a tingling sensation and realize, oh, I can feel my shoulders are getting a bit too much sun, which will tell me either to step in the shade or tell me to put on some more clothing so I'm not getting directly heat from the sun. But unfortunately, what people do is they block that receptor because they start to use SPF 50 on their skin
No, no,
or
no.
things
There is
that
a
help them tolerate the heat, which then masks those feelings of I'm getting hot. Like, as a matter of fact, even today, because it's 90 degrees where I'm at, I was
Mhm.
walking around because I had to take care of a lot of my animals. I have livestock here on my property. And as I'm walking around, I feel totally fine. I don't feel like I'm burning. It wasn't really that hot to me. But then I can feel my head tingling and I feel a little bit foggy headed. And that
Mhm.
was my indication right there going, oh, I think I'm getting too much sun. I better go back in and just sit in the air conditioning before I start coming out and start working. So there are things that the body does to let you know that you're overheating.
No,
But I
it
do
does,
think,
but there is a two different things, because we do have receptors that can, because when we are when the body, when the skin, when there is a sunshine, the sun is heating us up, then the temperature raises up, and there is a body response to that because there is a control center in the brain which says, "Oh my God, our body is getting overheated." So what we do now, and there is a control center in the brain that sends a signal to the sweating gland that says keep sweating, and that's how we're gonna lower the temperature, because that's what the homeostasis does. It's kind
yeah.
of like there is a negative homeostasis when it says like, oh my God, we are heating us up, let's cool us down. What we're gonna do? We need to sweat. But there is also like a positive homeostasis where it says like whatever comes, do it even more. For example, when the receptors of there is a when the woman needs to deliver the baby, right? Then the baby head pushes through the cervix, and there on
Mhm.
cervix there are the receptors that just say, oh my God, the baby is coming. So now the baby normally pushes the cervix to open so the baby can go out. And now what the homeostasis does, the sense the hormones, the brain say, oh my God, the baby is coming, send the hormones down, oxytocin and all the rest one, so it's gonna stretches even more so the baby can go out. So there is, and then the same way homeostasis keep and tends to keep the system within its boundaries, within its how can I say that, values. So for example, value for the good temperature of the body would be, I don't know, anywhere in between 36.5 to a 37 Celsius. right? So that's the value. And the body tends to, leave it there. When you go out there and it says like, oh my God, now it's hot, you are starting exactly what you felt. It's kind of the body said like, okay, now you sweat. If it's cold, we're gonna start shivering. So the kind of like a muscle reaction gonna build
Yeah.
up the temperature of the body. But on the same token, everything that's happened in the environment of the dog is causing the brain to react.
Mm-hmm.
And the brain, the controls, because everything that they see, everything that they feel, everything that they sense on using all the senses, they are kind of like need all of those informations need to be processed inside the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And every single information goes to execution, because once we notice something need to be done with that information. And then the outcome of that homeostasis of those kind of like receptors, because everything we see, everything we hear, everything is the taste, smell, and touch needs to go through the brain. So I witness it with the eye. I see something exists there, but what I gonna do with it, that information, that depends on what the brain gonna tell me to do. So either
Sometimes it's not anything that you would actually even do at that moment. Sometimes it's just stored as memory, and then sometimes that memory might serve you in a separate life experience or a separate purpose. And that's actually what latent learning is.
Yeah, it is. Also, it can be like a reaction can be kind of delayed, right? You can exactly do what you said, but also sometimes we are witnessing things that might feel threatened to us because sometime in a lifetime we experienced, and that's where the clicker training and all these conditionings are coming in place. But the whole purpose of me telling this in this context of the homeostasis and how the brain operates, there is two things that usually the brain cell and brain reaction can cause, like a neurotransmitting. Everything starts to be, I see something, then it turns into a chemical reaction through the in between neurons, and then turns through the electric reaction that goes through the neuron, and then finally it's gonna go to the muscle. So I'm gonna contract the muscles, move, do something, digest the food or things like that, or it's gonna trigger the hormonal release that's going to actually cause me to feel things within my body. But also as that operates within human body, that's the same way the dogs operates as well. So if I feel stressed, the cortisol level goes skyrocket. What the brain gonna say? Oh my God, we are now under the threat. So the adrenaline gland starts being activated. The moment that starts to be, when the dog is under the perception of threat, it doesn't need to be a life threat.
I'm understanding everything you're talking about. I just don't understand how it's related to what we're talking about.
Very much related to what we are talking about, because
so help me understand the relation between that and operant conditioning.
Anything to do need to be inspired by the brain directing to the part of the body, endocrine system, or the muscle to release. For example, if I fear, that's not because I'm afraid. It's because my body is overwhelmed with the fear hormones that gonna make my body react on a certain environment that's created by the humans. And that
where do you see that in operant conditioning, or the lack of that operant conditioning?
No, but you can produce a dopamine level release when you create a food, and when you give the food. Once you wanna, that's not just that the dog wants to get a food; it's entire bodily sensation that are connected with that visually food.
So with behaviorists, we call that a primitive state. So it keeps them in a primitive state, because that's the reason why we don't want to use food in training animals. Because what you're really doing is you're not creating a symbiotic relationship between an animal. What you're doing is you're taking advantage of its primitive state of mind on how it's feeling around that food, and then using that to manipulate behavior, which is not something that can even be sustained long term without having to constantly always reinforce it.
What I was telling here is how that changes dog physiology. Because it just doesn't just stay on the level of those
for the worst.
For the worst. Yeah, because now we are exploring the worst thing. And that's exactly where you said, like, this is something that we need to train our dogs to do. It's Pavlov was also, Pavlov got a Nobel Prize 1904, not for the psychology. He got it for the physiology. His Nobel Prize was not for the psychology. His study was used in the psychology, but was actually he was proving how the outer world affect what we do to the dogs by offering them the food and conditioning them changes the physiology of there because they're going to salivate. And they don't salivate because the dog said, oh, I'm going to eat because now I need to salivate. It's a brain decision to do that.
Yeah, because it
And
associated the food. Yeah, it's
the
associated
whole
with the food,
point
which created a
of me
salivatory response.
of whole point of me telling this story is when our institute was checking the and doing that mineral coat analysis to the dogs that are conditioned on any level, the hormonal structure was clearly showing high activity or inactivity of the thyroid gland, but almost always hyperactivity of the adrenaline gland and cortisol level. When when the dog cortisol level is high, then the immune system is compressed. And it's normal to be done when we are under attack. It's normal that the stress is going to last.
So I want to make sure whenever we talk about things, I try to keep things simple for the podcast audience because you're very scientific. So I want to make sure they understand. So what you're saying is when you're doing this form of training, how it affects the dog's physiology, and it's not for the best. So if somebody were affecting their dog's physiology this way, and they were doing it through their training, how can they reverse the process? What's the first thing that they would do to prevent them furthering damaging the dog's physiology?
First, you need to stop. They need to stop doing it to a dog. Because as we are doing it, it becomes a part of the life experience of the dog. So the dog perceives that as a constant stress in which they live.
And the thing is the people confuse because to you and me, we see constant stress. That's not how everybody sees clicker training. That's why it's such a huge movement. You and me can see anxiety, stress, anticipation, waiting for the next command, the constant hyper focus or hyper vigilance around the person that's performing all of this. But to a lot of those people, that just looks just so a happy dog. It looks like my dog is having an amazing time.
Yeah.
So what would be your conversation with somebody that says, I don't see that. I don't see how that's affecting my dog. But he looks happy. He's excited. He does things for me. Why are you saying that my dog is suffering when he's not? So how do you help bring somebody to that understanding?
Just do the code testing. Send the code in our lab in California. Sign up the form. And it's a very simple form. We need
they're gonna see in that form, they're gonna get the study back, and it's gonna say during this time when your dog was super happy and excited, we see high levels of stress.
Yeah. You're gonna see the minerals ratio of the minerals, high pollutants, and everything in the dog's body. That happens just because when the dog is hyperactive,
let me ask you this question because I'm trying to think like that person, right? I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just I'm trying to make it so I'm trying to create this understanding of somebody who doesn't know anything about psychology, how they're going to be convinced of that. So if my dog's genuinely happy, is there a measurement of that endorphin, or is there a measurement on that study that shows a measurement of during this time you could see your dog was happy? And during this time, your dog. So how do I know that my dog's genuinely happy, and how do I know that they're stressed? The tail's wagging, they're smiling. Would the test show the difference between that state and another state?
Because the test, what the problem with the test is actually measuring the mineral status of the mineral in the tissue, and the coat is a tissue that lives for 3-4 months. For example, your dog shedded last time 3 months ago, and now new coat grew.
So do you have a copy of that study, or do you have an example of that study that you could share in the screen?
Yes, I do. I can share.
Let's check it out because I think you're talking about this, and I think a visual for anybody watching this podcast would appreciate.
Let me see. Okay, you talk about things, and then I'm gonna just find those. Let me
Okay.
just find.
Anyway, so again, the focus of kind of the podcast is clicker training or food-based training harming your dog in ways that you just don't realize? I know for one thing is that if you stop it altogether, what you get what most trainers would call regression.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody may take that as that's why I have to keep up on the training because my dog is a really bad, shitty dog after if I don't keep up
Mm-hmm.
with the training. Not understanding that that's the dog, that's the part that you never really worked on properly, which is why it's still there. You're masking all that junk with the conditioning, and it's giving you this false sense of illusion that you have control. I mean, you are controlling and managing, but it's giving you this false sense of understanding that your dog is behaving because
Mm-hmm.
you're manipulating and controlling and managing. But when you're not controlling and managing and manipulating, now you're left with the actual dog, their true character. And then you realize, oh, shoot, this is the dog I have, and he's bad. That's the dog you had the whole time. The reason why you're still left with that dog is because you never really addressed it. You masked it with a lot of the trick training and manipulation with food and all those kind of things. And unfortunately, you're left with a giant puppy afterwards that still doesn't know how to function without being controlled, without being managed, without using any of those gadgets or clicker training or food in order to get it to perform tasks that you want it to get it to perform. A long time ago, somebody gave me a really good example of what that is like in a more of a human world or more discussing in society. Right now, we're constantly controlled and managed as people. You think you're living in a free country. You think you're free. You're not really free. You're conditioned. You're
Mm-hmm.
conditioned to think in certain perceptions and in certain ways. And the government and marketing, especially, relies on the same methods you're using on your dogs, on you to buy Nike over Adidas. They conditioned your state of mind through marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The laws, the government conditioned their citizens to have a certain state of mind. But what if the law no longer controlled and managed you? What would that say to your character? Who are you as a person when you're not being controlled and managed? So, what if the United States or whatever country you're from said, you know what? The government has fallen. All you citizens, you're on your own. Please be good to each other. And they just dipped out.
Okay, so I
Now you
find.
get to see the population's true character when there's no control and management. And that's where you start to understand the true character of those people. So control and management doesn't make good people. Good people make good people. But if they're
Mm-hmm.
being influenced in certain ways throughout their upbringing, they get conditioned in horrible perceptions. All right, I see a black background all of a sudden.
Oh, you see the
You,
back. You see. Oh, wait
everything
a
behind
second.
you just turned black.
Is
There you
this
go.
better now?
Yeah. So you have so if you I don't know, have you ever shared your screen on Zoom? I'm sure you have before. There we go.
Can you
Yeah.
see
Okay,
it?
cool.
Okay, so this is a hair tissue mineral analysis, how it looks once you get it in your scent, and we so that the lab is testing all of these minerals, like from like 35 of them, including the like heavy metals, and that's
Right.
what's interesting. You see the so for these dogs, for
So
example.
this is a blood is this a hair sample or a blood
Yeah,
test
this
on the
is a
dog?
hair sample. And then the
Okay.
hair sample, this is one of the most comprehensive and complicated tests to read. And there is a very high end you need
And
to
what is
work
this? What is this test called?
hair tissue mineral analysis. Hair tissue mineral analysis. And
Okay.
then that hair tissue mineral analysis shows the history of the dog's life while the dog was under the certain time. So, for example, if you had your dog tested like now, and then you retested the dog in like 3 months, you expect that the changes of the lifestyle of the dog gonna affect the outcome of the test. Where actually, when you test the blood, right? You test the blood, and then you get one results now, but that results can change in 20 minutes. because the blood has very easily, blood flows through the body, and has very sensitive homeostasis. Blood tends to get back to its normal state as soon as possible. And oftentimes when we eat something, it can affect our blood results, and they oftentimes tell us like,
So how
don't
long?
eat.
If you're studying a hair sample from a dog,
Mm-hmm.
and it's holding whatever is showing the records of the emotional state or whatever happened as that.
So this is there is a outcome of this research that can tell us exactly the one question. What's actually very interestingly to learn is actually which type of the metabolism dogs has and why. Is it slow? Is it medium? Is it high?
So where's the stress level? Where on this does it indicate you that there's high stress?
For example, this dog is constantly the high stress, because you see some of them like this is FE, you call it like gvožđe. Kako se kaže gvožđe vedrane? How do you say gvožđe? I don't know. Let me just help.
Which one is that? Is that the MH one, the M or the MN one? Which one is the
FE?
FE?
FE is kind of like, I know it on Serbian. I don't know how you call it on English.
That's okay. So FE, I can't read that number. I'm trying to widen my screen, but it won't let me.
It's called iron.
Iron, yeah, there you go, iron. So you see with these dogs,
so it says a range from 25 to 400, and then it says high.
And he has like 1,135. You see, that's extremely high. Then this
that's iron, but so FE is iron.
Yeah, FE, and then the problem.
So are they saying that if they're showing high in iron, that means that they're stressed?
No, yeah, there exactly mean that, because a lot of things, it's kind of like how this interacts with the stress interaction. It's very interestingly.
So couldn't it just be diet related, that the dog's high in iron?
Yeah, but I try to explain, and you're cutting me in and out every single time I try to come that road. So when the dog's stress controls the gland that called adrenaline gland. When adrenaline gland is constantly active, the release of the cortisol happen as an outcome of that, because the adrenaline gland recognizes the surrounding environment in which dog lives as a stressful environment. And in order to protect from the stressful environment and to protect themselves from the stress, they need to act accordingly. And in order for us to do that, we need to release the hormones in order to act accordingly towards that. And then which hormones are released once we are under the stress? First goes adrenaline, and after that follows the cortisol. And for both those hormones are naturally, they are life-saving hormones, but we are and programmed, every single animal is programmed to live in the stressful environment for a really short period of time. Once in the stressful environment, the dog or any animal, or including us, need to make three decisions. Will I run away? Will I freeze at this point until this stress or this threat doesn't pass away, or are I gonna fight? So that's freeze, fly away, or fight. If that's possible to happen, then I decide what I'm gonna do and I move on. When we are living with the dogs, like dogs are living with us, usually they don't have to fly away. Where would they go, right? Oftentimes the dogs are, when they try to experience aggression, we're going to force them by behavior. Don't do that. We're going to put them on a collars, choking them, whatever. So what actually dogs usually do is the same thing that children do: freeze. Remember, oftentimes they said, oh my God, I live it's much easier for me to freeze in this state and then experience so-called chronic stress. So what also happens when the cortisol level is high, there is only one organ in the body that is served by activity of the adrenaline and the cortisol, that's the brain. Because the body is now recognizing this environment as a stressful environment. Now I need to make a decision. Will I run away? Will I freeze? Or am I going to fight? Who can tell me what to do? Is my brain. So the cortisol sets to entire body, shut off. We need to shut off all the glands, every single hormone needs to be shut off as much as possible because the brain needs to decide which of these two things we should go. And then what is the food for the brain is the glucose. So that's exactly what happens when you have a high level of the cortisol. It's mean immune system is compressed. Thyroid gland is compressed. Thyroid gland is compressed, doesn't function properly because the cortisol overwhelmed the entire body.
And that causes high iron? Is that?
And once you see high iron, high whatever they are here, like look at this guy, high aluminum, like from 0 to 250, and aluminum is with him 746. So
is there anything on here that just shows the cortisol level instead of showing high iron and high?
The cortisol level is very difficult to capture because we are developing a test in which you will be able to see through the code the cortisol level as well. But
how do we know that high iron is due to stress and not just due to having high iron?
Because a high iron you can try to do because a very important way of this, what I'm telling you, is that how do I know this works? Because once we do the test before our program. For example, you have the program of yours, and you have your clients, and they come in and they do the test, and we show them, okay, this is how your dog looks like, and let's try to fix this first without changing any diet, without giving any supplements. Anything, because the problem becomes like, how do you get rid of something that's inside the dog's body? There is a lot of things. When something is low, then you give something, and then it's kind of like taking up the value of it. But it's with the hair tissue mineral analysis is so complicated, complex work of how this operates, and majority of that is driven by activity of the thyroid gland, because the thyroid gland is one of the most responsible one for the interaction of the digestion and a mineral balance through the body. The moment you see all of this is off, you can assume that the thyroid gland is either hyperactive or either a lot of activity happens in it or no activity at all. And everything that we can assume this is happening because of the high cortisol level. And everything what we do in our institute, that study is almost conducted to be done, is that we had a test before. The only thing what the dogs were doing are treated differently, experiencing cognitive behavioral therapy during the time of 3 months. And now we are in a time to take a test again. There was no dietary changes. There were no supplementation of the dog. And we saw changes in the dog's result outstandingly. Everything came back to a normal, almost normal within the 3 months, just by implementing a cognitive behavior and just by taking out any gadgets, any conditioning, any treats, and any excitement. And the people come back to me and say, oh my God, I see her like in a Zen mood. I never saw her in my life. And that's what I was always kind of telling about this, and this was my hypothesis, and we are really close to this moment of
just to validate, because I'm trying to seek some understanding. So just to validate, you're showing high iron, which is caused by stress.
No, it's not. No. It kind of like that's too kind of like too.
So it's one of the signs of
but look at this one. Look at this guy here. What he said, like additional comments, like high level of aluminum may interfere with the iron and the copper metabolism. Like this chronic exposure can lead to skeletal disorders and all kind of like problems with the kidney disease and enzyme inhibition and things like that. And then also she has a iron copper problem. It says like it's in between. It's normal to be in between 1 and 12. And that ratio is with this dog like 129.10. And then this disorder caused by this ratio includes, but not limited to, the renal disease, protein losing syndrome, chronic anemia, or any other effects of liver and things like that. And you know what's interesting to this dog is a vegetarian dog. So this dog eats only vegetarian diet, But you know what's also interesting to this dog is that has 25 years.
So what is the behavioral issue, or what was the behavioral issue of this specific dog, if any?
Yeah, this was like a pretty much like a dog was like I think like a problem that the owner came with was like a high-end separation anxiety. But then
Okay.
because of that, they sacrificed entire life for her. Like they were like being kind of like completely strange, having her living kind of like a sacrificed entire life of theirs to this dog. And also, but you know, this is
So once
also
you got rid of those triggers and then you did a retest, actually, have you
yes.
already done a retest with this specific dog?
No, it's gonna be this retest to this dog is due in 1 month. They're
Okay.
still working
How long has
on
the
that.
dog been in the program?
So for 1 month. So in 1 month, it's going to be the program lasts like 2 months until we expect that the dog's behavior changes enough, and there is a time so it can reflect in a new testing.
So how often is this dog shedding its fur and growing new
What
fur?
I what I the code tends to collect like a matrix of 3 months, approximately 3 months of life. And
Uh-huh.
what we do is actually tend that should be something that should be what can a lifestyle of every dog, a responsible ownership should be to test without guessing what our dog need from the dietary perspective. But also first, what I always love to do and to say to every single client is let's first eliminate the stress. Let's not change the diet. Let's not include any detoxification in the I'm sorry, if the heavy metals are present, don't do any supplementation. Let's just see what will happen if only we transfer from the like a forceful like a behavior conditioned behavior, like how you say conditioning the dog by force or by
So
reward.
so this if this particular dog in this particular study, you said that he had major separation anxiety, right?
Yeah,
So
and it's a vegetarian. That's very important for the entire
okay,
picture.
so he's vegetarian, whatever.
Yeah.
So he's got separation anxiety, it's causing high stress, and then we're seeing those changes elevated in the hair sample. So what? So did you just eliminate? How
Stress.
did you control the? If he has separation anxiety,
So
were they using tools? Were they training during that
no,
time?
no, 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 no tool. No, no, no. They tried everything before they
Okay.
came to us.
So what you did was just you just eliminated the trigger, saying let's not allow this trigger
Yes.
response.
So we have like a Doggy Mom Academy. You have like four programs, four modules that you go through, and whatever it's kind of like I don't need a dog. So what the way I work is I work with the doggy moms. I work with the doggy
Yeah,
parents.
yeah.
I said this is what the dog's behavior means when they do it, and this is what how we need to create an environment in which the dog becomes self-control. So don't need a trigger, you don't need a force, you don't need the you don't control dogs from outside. You create a space in which dog control itself, and then
Mhm.
outcome of that control is a positive, desirable, and how you say desirable behavior. So I get, but in order for me,
How long does that behavior, how long does that balance have to take? Like, let me give you an example, right? Um, if let's say let's just for because I don't have a really good example, let's just say somebody took a hair sample from me
Mhm.
and they said, "Oh, it shows here that you might smoke THC recreationally."
Okay,
Right? Because they say that that will stay in your hair follicles for I forget what it is, 3 months
three
or
months, yeah.
yeah, 3 months, right? Okay.
Mhm.
So if I told them, well, I don't do that anymore, I haven't done that for 3 months. They wouldn't. They'd have to wait an additional month to get a new hair sample just to show. Oh no, in fact, I know you haven't been. I can tell because of this hair sample. There is no traces of THC in it. So we believe you. We believe that you haven't been doing it for 3 months.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
how
because
often does that? How often for a dog? And when you do that test,
so what
especially
I
with dogs and they're shedding, how often?
what
At
I
what
would
point can you do another hair sample and know that it's a new hair sample and not taken from an old hair sample because the dog hasn't shedded that hair yet at the time that he did have that stress level?
it's a 3 month circle. You can like you have in a new 3 months next 3 months, no matter is the coat grows forever, like whatever breed your dog have, the 3 months is enough that the new, because this is a matrix. It's called how you say that, takes out the middle range. It's kind of like very complex test, and it's always getting in account exactly what you ask, but it's always a middle how you say middle rate, middle value of whatever is found by the test. And they said, like, not they said, like, it's recommended to do this test like every 3 to 4 months. I'm doing to my dog actually every 3 months. So I do on
Okay.
3 months on a regular basis. It's 4 times a year, and it's also giving you such a nice
So then when you
runway.
do the program, you retest the hair sample in another 3 months, and then you see
Yeah,
that there's a
so you can.
change.
It's not only this is not only test that you're gonna do because you know that you are on the right path with the dog's behavior, but you also want to know that you are nutrition properly, that you are the season doesn't affect your dog. It's a nutritional also guidance. It's a supplemental guidance that you don't treat that you don't feed your dog just because you feed the dog with the chicken and with this and with that. This actually tells you, once you eliminate the very important part of it, that you eliminate first the stress from the environment. So all of this is not affected by the stress, but only it can. So because when the stress is present, when the cortisol is high, when the immune system is low, then what happens is actually that the gut, like a microbiome of the gut, is affected. When
Yeah.
that's affected, you cannot, no matter how great food dog eats, there wouldn't be a possibility of that dog to digest and to use all of those great minerals from the food, because the trace minerals are very important. Nothing of this what is on this test
So
cannot
so
be.
what does a happy dog look like to you?
So to me, I like my Henny is a perfect example of the happy dog. Is kind of like what he does during the day is mostly sleeps. So let's say 80% of the our together time, he sleeps in his bed. He moves to a couch, sofa. He comes here, he comes there. Like we work like around the clock, like a lot of hours we are in a school. And then when we are together, then we engage in the interaction through the ritual, through the feeding time. We take him to a walk through the ritual. It's a walking time. We don't take a long walks, but we also take him to hunt with us, like couple of blocks, just to kind of bring that excitement of him going out in the hunt with a little pack of me and Vedran. And also we interact with him by playing with him a couple of times a day for a couple of
Okay,
minutes,
so
like 2 to 3 minutes.
so when he's playing, what does he look like when he's playing? What does
So
his body look
our playing time is always actually something that we do that doesn't require putting a dog in a high alert state of being, to put him in a state of red stress, right? What I tend to do is hype him up a little bit and cool him down, and then I leave the for what I like to do actually with him is to call him to, then he comes to me, he's very excited, and then we ended up in that cuddling game. So I like that the most with him. I like to cuddle with him, and
So
I
you
like
don't.
to
So when you
pet
play with
him.
him, you're talking about more just calm interaction. You're not exciting him.
No, 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 no. We are not
Okay.
exciting him at all.
So if you're I'm just trying to seek some understanding so I understand what you're saying. So if you walk through a door, if you walked home and you walk home, does she greet you at the door happily, or does she chill on the couch and just wait for you to come over to her?
Depend. It's literally depend. We sometimes we'll
Okay.
come back. Literally
So
depend. And
does she
that's what
ever
I.
does she ever come up happily to you at the when
Yeah,
you're at
she
the
would
door?
she would come up happily. If happily you mean anxiously, I would say I would call that anxiously. Yeah, he would come up
Okay.
sometime very
So if she
anxious
comes
about.
up that way anxiously, in your perception, is that a stressful state?
Yep. And then what
Oh,
I do is I ignore that. I just delay my greeting to him. So what I,
okay.
I come I come to home, and then if he's chilling on the couch, I would call him to come, right? Because yeah, I came home, I put my bags off, he's chilling on the couch. I called him, he would come to me and we'll cuddle. If he comes to me first, excited, hyper excited because we came home, I'll delay my greetings. I'll wait
Right.
for him to settle, and then I will call him, and then we will cuddle again. So that's what I like to do with him, and I'm never ever overexcite him. And he's 99% when we have guests over and when we have someone comes over, they would like, oh my God, this dog is so boring. Like he
Yeah.
barely he doesn't greet the guests. He come there, pick up his big ears, look at them, maybe goes there, sniff them up, and goes back to his bed. And then they kind of like got even insulted, like, "Oh my God, these dogs doesn't like to be pet." Of course, because the dogs has a completely different perception of when our group, they don't see guests as a guest, they
Yeah.
see
If you
guests as
see
a
two
potential.
puppies playing with each other, or you see two dogs interacting, chasing and running back and forth in the yard, entertaining each other, is that considered a stress state?
I kind of like, I don't see the dogs, and any animal wouldn't do anything without a context. And when I see two dogs playing, right, it's only until they do not get themselves in order, because the playtime is always putting one in order to another one. And they would use every single time. There is no leisure time for dogs. There is no leisure time for any other animals, especially not for the group animals. Because for the group animal to be calm and content, the group need to be structured. And in a structured group, there is a place for everyone. And out from that place comes responsibility for that group survival. So if we want to put these human traits to our dogs, I see my dog happily play in a dog park. I'm so against those dogs park, because those dogs park it's not a question, will some drama happen there and when your dog's going to be attacked or attack someone else. The question is when it's going to happen and which consequences of that going to be. Because every single time we put the dog to interact together, the only thing they're looking for is to put each other in order. The
Mhm.
moment the order is established, the play stops. And you're gonna
Right.
see the people they go to the dog park, they enter the dog park, and there is 5 dogs and my sixth one. And now they're gonna start chasing each other and jumping over and doing things for 5-10 minutes, and then occasionally everything stops. All the
Mhm.
dogs are like laying down close to their owners, and that peace remains until something doesn't disturb the group. There is a prey, someone throws the ball, another
Yeah.
dog comes, someone goes out. The group is again moved away, the structure of the group is moved. They need to redo the play by putting themselves in order. Sometime the dogs would make that order in peace. Sometime they'll need to little pressure on the other one to put someone in charge, put someone over, below them, or they'll agree that they're over them or whatever. But I what I'm, kind of like, more I learn about dogs, more I try to respect them. And a lot of my respect from dogs come when I observe the behavior of the dogs in India that I studied, and also in Brazil. You said you was observing the Mexican dogs, and when you have a dog that entire life is okay with him, they are fed, they are protected, the group is structured, the place where they're living is pretty much like under the control. You would see these dogs like laying entire day until there is no time to go and eat something else.
Yeah. We'll have to. We're gonna sign off soon because I don't want us to go too far over on the podcast. But I was just gonna say that I agree with you. Um, I
So
think a lot of
and I'm
times
sorry,
people.
you are asking me the question that I have oftentimes very difficult to kind of like get
Yeah,
across with my clients: is the happy dog is a
yeah,
boring dog?
I agree with you 100% because I understand where you're going with that. Um, and I don't know if what I'm going to say you might find in disagreement, but I think with my clients, I have to help my clients understand that balance of recognizing when is their dog really content. Because I play with my dogs, but I don't play with them if I'm realizing that they're obsessing over it. Then I realize, okay, this is not a very good play session. I don't see any self control. I don't see any self restraint. I don't see that I can stop and they can read the situation. Go, oh, okay, he's tired. I realize that okay, they're not in control of themselves. This is turning to obsessive. So for me, if I walk into my front door my dogs don't walk up to me when I walk through the front door. My dogs, when they see me, they wait for me to come because I have what I call like a half house boundary. There's no fence or anything. It's just there's just a space where they can't cross, right? And they hold that space on their own. I don't have to make them do it. But when I come in, they automatically realize, oh, we can't go to his side of that front door because there's this space that we're not allowed. So I see a lot of that self-restraint, that control, that management of their emotions. And I just go about my day and then I cross over into their space and then they greet me on that space, but they don't rush me at the door. But I see the emotion, I see the connection, I see that they're happy to see me, but I don't see it obsessive. So for me, my dogs look very calm and gradual and happy. But if I see my dogs going, oh my God, that's home, they're wagging their tail and they have no thought and they just invade my space with no thought, then I realize this is a little obsessive. This is an over exaggeration of what would be more of a natural behavior. So to me, I feel like I do see dogs happy, and I think my clients want their dogs to be happy. And there's certain times where they go, "Is he happy?" Oh yeah, I can definitely see he's happy. But there's other times where my clients go, "Is he happy?" That is not.
Happy.
I know it looks happy, but there's some obsessive behavior here. He's not happy. He's obsessive. He can't even control himself.
Everyone, you know how I learned, because my mentor was telling me when I was going through this, oh my God, that's happiness. No, he said that's anxiety. I said, oh my God, no, that's anxiety. No, it's anxiety, because that's exactly when you, and then how we can learn about to observe the anxious behavior is exactly when you observe the dogs or wolves, like especially African wild dogs.
Mhm.
Those creatures in the nature are so wild that they are kind of like, and so kind of like with no emotions to the animals that they are killing, that they would actually oftentimes eat half live animal. So if you have a stomach, I call every single one of you who are watching this podcast to observe how the dog's body is, any wild animal, which kind of body language they have when they hunt the animal, the other animal, especially when they kill the animal. When you see wolves hunting, when you see African wild dogs hunting, when you see dingoes hunting, every single time you're gonna see that happiness. The tail is wagging, their body is so fierce and so want to move on, because that's how the body looks when it's overtaken by emotions of the cortisol. That's how the body looks when it's ready to kill.
Yeah,
And then
it's
on the
funny.
other side,
I
sorry.
had a friend of mine, just really quick, just to kind of help support that. I had a friend of mine in high school, um, and I always thought he was just a creepy guy because whenever he was upset or whenever he was emotionally temperamental, I mean, in high school you get into scuffles. I've even been in fights with him before,
Mhm.
and I always felt uneasy around him when he was temperamental, upset, or fighting, because when he was fighting, he was always smiling.
Yeah, that's kind of like that.
I had a friend like he would fight and he'd see him,
That's how the
and I'd be like, "Why are
dogs
you smiling when you're doing that?" And he goes, I can't help it. I don't know if it's nerves, but I always smile when I'm angry."
dogs are and wolves are hyper happy when they are hunting. And trust me,
Yeah.
when you see what's going on in that mind, that dead body at that time, because every single hunt for the dog or for the wolf is almost on the edge of the death. Every single time they hunt some animal, there is a chance that that animal gonna kill them, or someone else gonna come and take the prey, like grizzly or someone else. They don't go in hunt so easily. They need to be equipped with the emotions and with the when the help of the they need to actually zone out and black out. Then
Yeah.
you can kill, then the animal can kill. Otherwise,
And that's what I call a primitive state. So you have your study to show that the body is creating some physiology that you can see for being in that state. With my clients, I just call it a primitive state so they understand what I'm talking about. And I usually just say when your dog's in a primitive state, it's an instinctual state, but it's not a controlled or managed state. It's a stress. So that's
yeah.
why I always tell people, if you give your dog a food bowl and he eats it, he's in a primitive state. He's eating. That's why he's excited. Maybe he's eating too fast. But the thing is once his food's done, he's no longer in the primitive state. It's done. But when
Hmm.
you're treating your dog throughout the day for every little thing, instead of making that a 2-minute meal and now the primitive state's over, you're prolonging this primitive state throughout the whole day by making your dog earn food. And that raises stress levels throughout the whole day. And that's where psychosis starts to happen.
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
next time there is a wonderful study that I put myself, I was reading it, and maybe next time we can pull it up and share it with the people to see. It was like conducted in Italy for a long time. It was a study, maybe still ongoing thing. And I said like 68% of the dogs that are following their owners around the home frantically has 80 like a dogs actually, let me put in a nicer wording, 80%, 68% of the dogs that are following their owners around the home constantly has more chance to develop some sort of the cancer in the later years of life, because that is how constantly their body is in a constant state of stress, thinking about their owner, protecting them, wanting to, because that's when my dogs are following me all over the place, I'm thinking, oh my God, he loves me so much and they're following me around the home. But actually, the dog is in the mind of, oh my God, I need to follow them because they don't know how to protect themselves. And I need to be there for them when something happened for them. So the dogs are actually have a perception that they're following their baby. It's not he following me because he's my baby. It's he following me because they think I'm their baby.
That could be one perception, but I'm sure there's multiple. We don't really know what the dog is thinking. But the other perception can be that they're not sure what to do without their owner. Because when you're controlling and managing all the time and giving treats all the time and telling what to do all the time, then you're gone. They don't know what to do with themselves. They're
But
constantly seeking
it's
that
again a
guidance.
stress. It's again it's the
Yeah,
stress
yeah,
level, right? And they said
yeah.
exactly they connected like aggression and shyness, and the dogs that are fearing these explosions. How you call those firearms and thunderstorms? The
Oh,
other
yeah, yeah.
dogs that
Fireworks or
tend
noise sensitivities. Yeah.
all of those dogs tend to develop cancers in the later years of life just because they're in a state of constant stress.
Yeah, I
And
mean, yeah. So anxiety, even though I mean, like when I first met my wife, I had anxiety. I was anxious. Didn't feel good, to be honest. I didn't like to be nervous. I don't even think I behaved as suave as I wanted to when I met her. I think she knew that I probably seemed really weird. My behavior probably seemed abnormal to her. But I just really, really just wanted to make, I just wanted her to like me. I also wanted her to know when I'm going to move in for that kiss. All of that was quite uncomfortable for me. Although looking back on it, I was like, oh my gosh, those were the good times. But at that
then
moment, it wasn't good for me. I was nervous as hell. I didn't want to mess up.
But
you
it's
know?
no problem with that because it was a moment, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
nothing wrong
But
with
it
the
wasn't
moment.
prolonged. Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah,
prolonged.
that's the whole
Yeah, I
point.
don't
We
love her as
are
much as I used to, so we're okay now. I'm
after
just
how
kidding.
many
I'm
years
just
of
kidding.
marriage?
Oh, we've been together. We've been married for 8 years now.
Oh,
So,
there
and
you
going
go.
strong. As a matter of fact, I love her more every day. But
There
we
you
have so
go.
many interesting experiences and deep discussions. And I'm like, wow, she's
Yeah,
got,
I hear
got
you
a very
because it's same
mind.
at my home. It's kind of like once we, I exactly I know what you're talking about, and but that's where the cortisol and adrenaline are actually good hormones to us, but not to be in a chronicle
Constant.
state with
Yeah,
them.
not to be in a constant state.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from for that. And I totally get how you're relating that to the clicker training and the animal training of constant use of rewards and overexcitement for positive reinforcement. Because it doesn't have to be food. I mean, if I'm around my dog all the time going, oh my God,
Oh my God, I can't stand that. Yeah.
I mean, that's just constant anxiety and stress as well.
My baby, my love, I do understand because that's another point is where I can, sir, you read the book, I guess. Maybe you read, maybe you didn't read yet. the emotional entanglement is something, because oftentimes the people ask me, okay, this is what I need to do with the dogs, and maybe we can talk about that next time, when they said like, this is what we need to do with our dogs. Okay, this is beginning, and this is how you enter this is the rituals you perform, this is how we create this wonderful environment in which we thrive for a long time. But then the people come back, and they're like honest clients. They come back and they said like, I know what I need to do, I just can't do it. Because when I see those eyes, when I see that tail wag, when I see them coming on my doorstep, I just melt, my heart melt, and I'm done. I can't do nothing what I need to do, what I know I need to do. And then what we need to do is actually do that emotional detachment. And the clients that go through that harmonic bonding and the harmonic resonance, develop that resonance with their dogs, are actually entering in such a strong emotional bond that they could, at this point, I can't not even explain to them what does it mean having the dog. But once they put every single piece of the puzzle on the right place, they do understand that it's not the dog who are they so much attached to. It's something that they're missing, and now the dog represents. And that's not fair to a dog, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I can't get love from anybody else, but this dog's loving me unconditionally, and I'm just showering it. So I think before we sign off, I think the common point that everyone should take out of this podcast is, it's not that we don't want you to enjoy your dogs, or the appearance of that relationship where you know that they're happy with you, they're happy with their lifestyle, but keeping them in a consistent state of excitability isn't happiness, it's unstableness. And keeping them in that state for too long can really cut their life short, because it is a form of stress. You know, so especially if they're in anticipation of earning rewards, or constantly in anticipation of what your next command is going to be all the time. If you're noticing that your dog's always underfoot, looking for that next command, wondering if you have a reward, if you crinkle a bag in your fridge, or you crinkle a potato chip bag or a package of food, and all of a sudden, boom, it puts them into this state, then you have to start thinking about, what are you doing to your dog that's keeping them in that consistent state all the time where they're always on edge? If you can crackle your food bag in the kitchen and your dog just lifts their head on the couch and goes, oh, well, if it's for me, she'll come to me, that would be a better state than if your dog jumped off the couch and ran to the kitchen to see, are we doing something today? Having that constant anticipation throughout the day isn't necessarily a healthy state for your dog to be in all day. And that's created through overtraining.
Overtraining, wonderful. Sure. I think like that was like very exciting show, I guess. Like maybe it was, I wanted to know, you opened the door. I don't know how did I ended up bringing this physiology state in it, but
well, it's related. I was just having a hard time understanding how it was related, because you were going deep down the rabbit hole of science and iron, and but it came around full circle, and I understand what you're explaining is, here's the proof of what happens physically, physiology-wise, to a dog when they're in a constant state of that happiness that you think is happy. And I totally understand that now. So I really appreciate you helping me get through that. I had a lot of questions because I was trying to understand where you were going with it. But I totally understand it. I understand exactly what you're going with that. So
thank you so much.
Thank you very much for taking the time to. Thanks for your patience.
No. I on the other hand, I really thank you, because Vedran was like, please just try to help him get it across, because sometimes I'm so overwhelmed with what I want to share with the people from these studies and everything that I kind of like do, that oftentimes I get lost in this scientific mind.
I think before signing off, I mean, I know that we have a small audience for now, but I really wanted to say before signing off, whoever is watching, I would really love your help. I mean, both Sasha and I would love for your help to share our podcast with people, share the link with people, and most importantly, make a comment as far as what you guys would like to know. What would you like Sasha and I to talk about? If it's involving your dog, then tell us what's going on with your dog. If you want some of our insights as to where to get started or what is your dog doing, and we're more than happy to just be an open book and share that knowledge. It won't be. It'll be it'll be a lot of assumptions because we don't know your dog and we're not there with your dog, but we can give you generalization, not necessarily a blanket statement of what your dog may be going through. What's the best course of action for your dog? We were toying with the idea of doing live calls at one point. Sasha and I talked about doing a live call, but then we also figured out that basically what would happen is somebody will come in with a live call, and we'll spend a whole hour just on that one person. And so we thought it would be great to just have people in their comments share your story with your dog. Tell us what's going on with your dog. How did you get your dog? Where did the dog come from? What's the background of your dog? What are you having difficulties and struggling with your dog? And we might choose your story to talk about during one of the podcasts. And we might share some really deep inside trade secrets that we only generally share with our clients. But it might give you a sneak peek of what we can offer to you guys and what we can offer to the listeners. So even if you disagree, we're totally okay with haters. I know that if I say haters, maybe we'll get a slew of haters coming on and making comments, but healthy debate is absolutely healthy to have. Arguing and hatred is not. Name calling is not. But if you have something to contribute that you want to talk about or you want us to elaborate on, by all means, Sasha and I are that's what we're here for. That's what the whole point of this podcast is for. So we hope that any listeners out there will be open to doing that. And we might even have, and before we might even have other trainers or other people that understand a lot about cognitive emotion with dogs that might want to do a guest podcast with us as well. In which case, you can contact Sasha and Veteran and see if we can get you on a spot with us where we can all chit chat very conversationally and open.
Yeah,
A safe
I look
space.
forward for that.
A safe space, right? To just chat about dogs and just about what we love to do.
Yep, there you go. Perfect. Thank you so much, Tony. It was really a pleasure meeting you again and every one of you who was with us tonight. Wish you nothing but the best until next Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern time, correct?
Yeah. See you 7:30 next Wednesday. These conversations are always good that you and me have. So yeah, and just so you know, everybody, these aren't even the really deep conversations. When the podcast goes off, me and Veteran have to hold ourselves. I mean, me and Sasha have to hold ourselves back, and Veteran has to step in and go, "You guys, stop talking. The camera's off." Oh, no, but I just wanted to say something really quick. Nobody's listening. Stop talking. This is all good stuff. Save it for the next podcast. It's super hard for us to stop talking once the cameras are off, but we try to save all the good stuff for you guys to make sure that we don't say something that's not recorded, but we love what we do. Everybody, it was great. It was great having everybody join us, and we'll see everybody next Wednesday.
Bye, Tony. Bye, everyone.
Yeah. See you later, Sasha.